Hello and welcome to the First Impressions Podcast. This is the official podcast for the Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams. Please join us for the 36th Annual FIRST Conference this summer in Fukuoka, Japan, June 9th through 14th, 2024. For more information, please visit first.org. And now we join the interview in progress.
So we're here at the FIRST conference in Fukuoka, Japan. I'm lucky enough to be talking to Umair Bukhari, Director and Head of the Ericsson P-Cert. You gave a great presentation yesterday. Thank you very much for that. Talking about the evolutionary tale of attackers and defenders in a telecom threat environment. Maybe you can give the listeners just a quick intro on what you talked about.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for having me here. I think the mobile networks are a thing that's known to every one of us. It's such a big part of our daily lives. We are used to browsing on the phones all the time. It's almost a given that no matter where you are in the world, you seamlessly roam, you connect to different networks. But how are these parts of critical infrastructure secured? What are the sort of things that happen in the background? They're not so known to so many people. So that is kind of the objective of this talk from my side, to explain a little bit and open it up. What happens in the back of these networks to make sure that we can all have a secure but still great connectivity around the world.
Part of the presentation, you gave a great overview of kind of where the technology started, going all the way from the 80s to where we currently sit, 1G through to 5G. Maybe you can give the listeners kind of a quick breakdown on like what that means, 1G through 5G, because I think that was a great example of where the technology is really headed.
Yeah, sure. So if we really think about it, I think this whole industry has gone through a tremendous and really spectacular evolution over the years. If you really think about the first generation, it was very much about, the briefcase-sized telephones, but still mobile, right? That's where it all started. And from there on to the 2G, we brought in the SMS and the voice calls, which became a norm. We all remember those days, texting on our button phones endlessly. Then came the 3G that really made it a norm to be able to browse internet on your phone. 4G then brought much better speeds, much better user experience. It brought with it the app economy. We are used to having apps on our phones and all such things. And 5G has really brought the connection of the societies. It has really, really changed the industry and the connectivity. And we have 6G, which will even in future be looking into a closer relation between the cyber-physical world. So yeah, overall, I think it's been a great evolution, and I think this is one of those technologies that has really touched everyone's lives, if I may say so.
Yeah, I remember the days trying to surf the web on GSRS, 2G. That took a little while, so I'm glad we've moved towards something more flexible for internet browsing. So alongside these changes from 1G, 2G, and moving on forward, also there's been a change on the back end to how we start to look at things, right? So originally, it was very highly specific technology that was specific to telcos. And now, based on your presentation, it seems like we've moved away from that and we've moved towards more commoditized and cloud-based focus, which has changed the way we see the threat landscape for telcos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has been exactly this technology shift that has really helped move the level of connectivity that we could have with the telecom networks forward. With all the cloud-based network functions, we have been able to bring in features like we are much more agile to provide better functionality, better adaptability in the networks. You're right. At the same time, this shift from being very, very, big server-centric, monolithic sort of architecture somewhere dark in the basement that no one knows about, we've really moved on to the cloud-native technology. And that does bring a lot of security and privacy aspects with it that we need to really care about and defend against. But I think 5G is really, really great in that sense that it has a lot of these features that really help take care of those things that might be possible. One big thing is, for example, the false base stations. We might have heard about that quite a bit. Those sort of detections are very much possible in the 5G networks, much, much better. Another very big thing that 5G networks are trying to bring are the encrypted identities. Everything is identity based. Everything is being authenticated even between the network functions, which really brings the focus on security built into the protocols to the light. Also, one of the big things that have been quite interesting and very well done in the 5G networks is the security of the interconnect network. I already mentioned roaming. I think it's one of the marvels, right? You don't even feel when you move between countries. Your experience doesn't change, but it has to be secure also because you're shifting between the networks. And that's one also very, very big thing, the interconnect security that 5G security really, really helps focus on and improve for the users and everyone as part of the network.
I think this is key, is that you were touching on a number of previous issues with SMS, things like SMS stealing and tracking of users using IMSI catchers. And I mean, certainly in the past, we've relied quite heavily on SMS as two-factor authentication, and that's been possibly a weak spot in certain areas. I believe NIST recommend against using SMS for two-factor auth. We're not quite rid of it yet, and it's an interesting evolution. And being able to secure that mechanism and be more secure in that mechanism allows us to keep using it where it's really important and really required, but also move off to different things once there's a more secure option available.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one other big thing to mention here is also that the 5G networks are quite much focused on what we call the zero trust architecture. What it really means is that even between the network functions, we are really focusing on authentication. We are making sure that, in past it has been a little bit like, it could be that there has been a concept of trust. Now, as we said, with the evolution of the technology, with the cloud native approach, I think it's becoming a little bit hard to draw the line. Where is that trust line? So we need to make sure that we go with that approach where network functions also authenticate to each other. Everything is identity based. So even if an attacker is able to get to one part of the network, they are limited to what they can do from there onwards. And we are able to secure the networks in much better way in the 5G networks, utilizing these sort of zero trust architecture principles.
So I guess that the question kind of leads us towards what's next? Where are we heading? Are we doing enough in these areas, or are we doing enough to increase the cost to attackers to make it harder for them to do these kind of things? What's next on the list, or what do we need to concentrate more on in the future?
That's a really good question, because I think, as we all know in the security, no system is 100% secure. It's all about really making sure that we create the balance between the return that an attacker gets and the cost that they have to achieve that sort of objective. And to ensure that we keep that cost high for the attackers, we need to talk a little bit about the Ericsson Trust Stack. That's a concept that is really, really important for the overall security of the telecom networks, because it is not about, we talked about all the great features, security built-in features that 5G is bringing. That's great, but that's just a small part of the equation. In the trust stack, we have 4 layers, and all of these layers have to be there to ensure that we are securing the networks at each level. So it starts with the standardization layer that we already a little bit talked about, to ensure that we have secure protocols, we have security built into those protocols. It's not like an afterthought. So things can be secure at the base of it. Then we need to ensure on the second layer that the product development has secure processes. We are building secure processes. We are making sure that we have processes to follow up with the vulnerability managed processes, and we need to make sure that we are monitoring those things, patching regularly, taking into account the new threats that might come up, and improving the products to cater for that. Then after that comes the layer where it's about the deployment. No matter how secure a product is, if it is not deployed in a secure way, then it's as good as anything else. So we need to make sure that when these networks are built, they're built in a secure way. The configurations, the hardening is done properly so that we can close off as many holes as possible for the attackers to utilize in that aspect. Then the last layer is, of course, the operations, and that's a very, very important layer also, because security, as you know, it's not a one-time process. It's really about making sure that there is good monitoring, there are good processes for the patch intake, there are good processes to ensure that if an incident happens, there is a good thought given to how to respond to that. And here, I think all parties have to play a part in the equation, from, as you see, from the standardization to the vendors building secure products, operators making sure that they deploy and operate in a good way, and then also, users to ensure that all the features that are available are used in a good way to achieve a secure telecom environment.
I guess that's why this connects to FIRST so well, is like you're talking to the people who are on the ground doing incident response, doing the monitoring and looking at those kind of operational processes, but also understanding the threats and how to respond to these things. So it's such a good message to resonate with the people here at FIRST. Let them understand what the challenges are in the telco space, let them understand kind of where things are moving in the stack and where the new technologies are moving and the new solutions are. I look forward to the evolution of this and what the next conversation is maybe next year.
Exactly, and thank you very much for having me. I think that's the message. Collaboration and cooperation is at the core for us at Ericsson also, and I think this community is great to come up with ideas and ensure that we solve the common challenges that we have, which is to make the world a better place at the end of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the First Impressions podcast. I'm your host, Martin McKay, and along with Christian Riley, we interview people who are going to be speaking at upcoming FIRST conferences. We look forward to seeing you at the 36th annual FIRST conference this summer in Fukuoka, Japan. It'll be going on June 9th through 14th. For more information, please visit first.org.